Kelsey. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing my fancy booktube hat, and today I'm bringing you another BooktubeSFF Babbles video. These are part of the BooktubeSFF Awards. Anyone can participate in these video prompts. As a couple of previous ones have been, this is a crossover topic with Top 5 Wednesday. I will leave the links to both Goodreads groups down in the description in case you want to learn more. And today's topic is a pretty superficial one. The topic is favorite SFF cover art, but the superficiality of the topic has not prevented me from feeling like I need to give a little bit of my rationale before I dig into the books. Firstly, these are all going to be books that I've read because I want to at least be able to touch on how the cover relates to the story inside. Second, these are all books that I own. I'm not including anything in this list, and I was including nothing for consideration that I did not own, that I had gotten from the library and not purchased a copy afterwards. The reasoning for this is simple. I want to show you physical books. Unfortunate timing for me has required that I film this at night. I would have much preferred some natural light, but we'll see. I'm pretty sure we can get you good visuals of all of these books. And third, these are all books that I liked. They are all books that I gave a 4 or 5-star rating to. I get really disgruntled when I pick up a book with a pretty cover and it turns out to be not good. So there are none of those on this list. The last thing I want to mention before getting started is that these are all fantasy novels. Not necessarily intentionally. I think, though, when you see the sort of aesthetics that I'm visually drawn to, it will make sense to you that these are aesthetics that are generally associated with the fantasy genre as opposed to science fiction. These are not in a ranked order of how much I like them, but I am going to start out with the one that's sort of like the obvious one for me, and that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. If you ask me to tell you a book cover that I am particularly passionate for, this is my go-to answer. Here is a closer look. Specifically, I like the hardcover edition. After getting this from the library, sometime after the paperback was already released, I held out for an opportunity to purchase the hardcover instead of the paperback. There's nothing bad about the paperback. It's in a very similar style, which is lovely. I like this style, but it doesn't have the visual impact for me that the hardcover art does. I think this is just stunningly perfect. It's got this sort of cut paper look. I think it may actually be, at least in part, cut paper art that was then photographed. It has a sort of three-dimensional look to it. It's also got a really lovely spine that has that hand with these little stripes. I think the glare might prevent you from seeing the stripes. And underneath the dust jacket, the hardcover is also just stunning with this sort of gilt silver design, and that's just really pretty. And the artistic credits on this one are the jacket illustration is by Helen Musselwhite, and the jacket design is by John Fontana. If you've read the book, you know that the black and white color scheme and also the whimsy are very much parts of this story. It's a really good fit for the book. It's also specifically a color scheme that you see a lot in fantasy novel colors, black, white, and red. You see that as just sort of coding for the genre, I guess, quite a lot. So it advertises the genre also very well. The next choice I have may be a little controversial, not necessarily the book in question. I expect it will show up on other people's lists, but the edition that I prefer. I specifically love the American cover design for Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This may be an unpopular opinion. I know that the cover design of the UK edition of this book, which looks very, very different, also has a lot of fans. But this has a level of detail that I really appreciate. In addition to all of the little mini illustrations that are in the little windows of this structure here, you've got like this this plant thing that is growing, and it comes up all the way around and starts to flower up here. All the details are meaningful in terms of the story. I like the sort of architectural structure of this thing here. I like the old-fashioned-y fantastical font type. And I also like, this is one of those books where the dust jacket is made to look like an old-fashioned-y book. I'm not sure you can tell that detail on the spine there. The background texture has this old paper look. So yes, I'm a fan of the cover design of the American edition of this book. I think it's really gorgeous. And the credits on this one are that the jacket illustration is by Scott McKowen and the jacket design is by David G. Stevenson. Now, I love this cover design. And I liked the book, but the book didn't feel to me like it had quite as much of a fairy tale whimsical feel as I felt like this design was advertising. It was sort of more of a tropey fantasy story where girl learns magic and eventually saves the day. I eat those stories up like candy, so I liked this book plenty. I gave it a 4-star rating, but it maybe didn't quite live up to the promise of the cover design for me. Next I have The Bell at Seelye Head by Patricia A. McKillip, and if you've been watching my channel through, say, several book hauls, you will know that I have been hoarding the editions of McKillip's books that have these covers with paintings by Kinuko Y. Craft on the cover, because they are just all around gorgeous. They're these, you know, full wraparound paintings with incredible amounts of detail and just like really fantastical and pre-Raphaelite and gorgeous. So I have many books with these covers. This is the one I'm showing to you because it's the only one of these that I've read so far. I loved this. It was a 5-star book for me. Nothing too heavy, it's a very light read. It's a small town fantasy that takes place in a coastal community. And one of the things that I loved about this cover and how it related to the book was that as I was reading the book, I'd get through a chunk of it and then I would set it down and then I'd pick it back up and see the cover again and see some other little detail that suddenly made sense to me that I noticed that I hadn't noticed before because it had been in what I read. So there are a lot of these details that eventually become relevant in the book, things that are from the book that just look like random decoration until you read it and then suddenly they have meaning. And that was just a really great experience to have both with a book and with a work of art. For this one, as I said, the cover art is by Kinuko Y. Craft and the cover design is by Judith Morello. Next, I have A Natural History of Dragons, really the entire Lady Trent series, but this is the only one of them I've read so far, by Marie Brennan. The covers of these books are the reason they first came to my attention before I even started watching Booktube, let alone had my own channel. I didn't decide to read them until I had seen some positive Booktube reviews though. But this is a series with dragon science in it, which is of course the best type of dragon book, or at least it's one of my favorite types of dragon books. And what's particularly remarkable about the covers is that they are scientific illustrations of dragons, which is just something that you don't see a lot in fantasy art. So it is visually arresting when you walk by this in a bookstore and you're not expecting it. And I will readily admit that these covers are part of the reason, if not maybe the only reason, why I am purchasing all of these books to read them instead of just getting them from the library. I want to eventually have a full set of these on my shelves. These books also do have a few illustrations on the insides, although not a ton, but in a similar style. And these cover illustrations are like full length. They wrap around a bit, but they fade into white on the back, so you can only see very faint traces of the back half of the dragon on the book. And for this one, the cover art is by Todd Lockwood, who also does the interior illustrations. I'm not finding at an immediate glance who the cover design is by. And the fifth and final book on this list is sort of the opposite of where I started. If The Night Circus was the book that was my most obvious choice, I think this is my least obvious choice. It's a book where the cover isn't necessarily like immediately flashy grabbing for me, nor is it like floridly pretty, but nevertheless it really works for me for this book, and that is The Goblin Emperor by Katherine Addison. On this one, the cover art is by Anna and Elena Babusso, and this is another one where I'm not seeing at an initial glance, a credit for the cover design. But what I like about this is how clearly it conveys a number of things about the story without actually being too literal. It's using the really common metaphor of the weight of the crown and portraying the crown in this case as the entire, you know, castle, palace, city, whatever. Again, like with the cover for Uprooted, it's very architectural. I wouldn't have necessarily identified that before I put together this list as something that appeals to me in cover art, but I guess it does. I think that the style of the architecture shown here feels really right for the world of this book. You've got this little airship off to the side, which indicates that the mild steampunk elements in this world building. There is an airship crash that is a major mystery that is to be solved in this book. And all in all, it's a really aesthetically pleasing image that effectively conveys with pretty clear symbolism this empire being dropped on this poor boy's head. And that is this book, wrapped up in a picture. So these are the books I've chosen for my top 5 favorite SFF cover art. Let me see if I can show them to you in a way that will show you some of the covers all at once. Yeah. Okay? Okay. So let me know if any of these are also your favorites. Let me know if you think you look for the same sorts of things in an SFF or fantasy cover that I do. Let me know if you think you look for really different things. I think that would be interesting to hear. Anyhow, I hope you're all having a really lovely day. That is all. Bye for now.